And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who has worked tirelessly to bring people together to find creative solutions to complex problems and challenges. During his 2 terms in the White House, he helped fuel one of the longest and strongest economic expansions in American history. Through his foundation, he has helped spur public-private partnerships that have made a difference in every part of the world. The annual meeting his foundation created inspired this forum, and we hope to build on its legacy. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to the founder of the Clinton Foundation and the 42nd President of the United States and a great New Yorker, Bill Clinton.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for being here. I thank Mayor Bloomberg and his partners for sponsoring this important event. I think the fact that we need to be together has been very much highlighted by the headlines of the last 2 or 3 days. The terrible earthquake in Mexico, the awful storms in the Caribbean, and a few of the storms at the United Nations. I say that because Mayor Bloomberg was kind enough to mention our dozen years at the Clinton Global Initiative. I want you to look to the future. But I believe that underneath all these debates that are going on today, there still lingers one simple question. We all know that we live in an interdependent world. We know there's lots of good about it, otherwise we wouldn't be in these chairs today. It's been good to us and to a lot of people we know. We are also quite well aware that a lot of people feel left out, left behind, alienated politically, socially, and economically, and are very much in need of a hand up to be part of the future that we now take for granted. So I think it's important to recognize that the most important obstacle to that future is not whether we are able to roll back the most severe threats of climate change, not whether we are able to find ways to generate employment, education, social justice in every corner of the globe. It is about whether we are able to think about it and act on it in a way that permits us to do these things. Every one of you could speak just as well as I about the positive and negative trends in the world today. You all know in the decade we just finished, in the decade that was characterized at UN Week by the Millennium Development Goals, we met a lot of those goals and nearly met some others. You all know, in general at least, what's in the Sustainable Development Goals. The real debate, as you saw yesterday at the UN, and you feel looking at those horrible pictures from the earthquake or the awful storms in the Caribbean, is how are we going to do that? In the dozen years we had the Global Initiative, there were thousands and thousands of commitments made, more than 80% of which have been fully completed, and we're still working on the others. They helped more than 400 million people in 180 countries. Why did they work? By and large, they worked because of partnerships between government and business and philanthropy and non-governmental groups. And so before we finished up our work, we had an independent survey done of the commitments, and they found that the partnerships were far more successful than governments acting alone, than businesses acting alone, than lone philanthropists acting alone. That the synergies of diversity were powerful in other people's lives. So I would argue to you that in this time of debating what that means in practical terms for the future of the UN, the future of the European Union, the future of the United States, who should vote, who should have a voice. The most important thing is whether you believe that social strength, economic performance, and political power flow from division or multiplication, from subtraction or addition. You're all here because in one way or another you intuitively know this. You believe that multiplication is a superior strategy to division. You believe that addition is a superior strategy to subtraction in economics, social inclusion, and politics. You believe that there are severe limits on the ability of rising separatist tribalism to solve the problems and seize the opportunities of the modern world. So I want you, as a citizen of this country that I love so much and the world that I believe we can build together for our children and for old people like me, our grandchildren, I want you to find ways to say that and act on it every single day. Because you listen to all these people talk all around the world. You watch all these conflicts all around the world. When you strip it all away, that's what it comes down to. The great E.O. Wilson, who is now almost 90, in his book, The Social Conquest of Earth, says that of all the species that have ever lived on planet Earth, including 4 million still around today, with 2 million more probably not yet identified, the most successful living species has been humans, closely followed by ants, termites, and bees. And he said that's because we are the best cooperators. And we get the nod ahead of the ants, the termites, and the bees because we have consciousness and a conscience. But they must be employed in the service of that cooperation. You really have to decide whether you believe that. A lot of us in this room, particularly those of us that have already had a good long life, could just take a hike and ignore that. Mike Bloomberg could. Heck, I could live on a month of his interest for the rest of my life. Why is he doing this? Because he knows that somewhere in every corner of the world, there's somebody that will grow up with just as much ability as he's had and nowhere near the opportunities. Because he knows if people with as much power and money as he has behave in a way that believes that division is better than multiplication and subtraction is better than addition, we may never give them the chance to do it. And you all believe that. You have to make other people believe it. And as my friend LeBron James said, not just by words, but actions. That's why you're here. But this is the great debate of our time. The separatist tribalism that you see in everything from the expulsion of the Rohingya in Myanmar to the 11 million refugees out of Syria to the pressures on Jordan and Lebanon to what they're doing in Yemen to what is happening in Venezuela. All this everywhere is about whether we should share power or grab it, and whether social inclusion is better than domination. Cooperation so far, according to E.O. Wilson's book, has been the one thing that has brought us down to the present day in the whole history of life on the planet. We have to take it to another level, and it depends upon our mind and our heart. First, believing that we can and must every day expand the definition of us shrink the definition of them. And we shouldn't have to have an earthquake or a hurricane to know that that is what we are about. That is the promise of the United Nations, the objective of the Millennium Development Goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the potential of this room. Thank you very much.